Today, our topic is writing an introduction for an essay. Now, what makes an essay interesting for a reader? All right. So before we go on, let's look at the some of the headlines and book titles that I have here. All right. Now, look at the first one. This is a book from Harry Potter. So if you are a fan of Harry Potter, you would be interested to pick up this book. Okay, and the next book that I have here is a series from Horrible Science, and this book is entitled Blood, Bones and Body Bits. So if you're interested in biology or in knowing about our body, you would want to pick up this book. So the title here is, it catches the attention of a reader. Now the next thing we want to look at will be newspaper headlines, right? The miracle cure kills 5th patient. Now, if this is a miracle cure, it's supposed to save people from illnesses, right? But here, it kills 5th patient. That means 5 people have died. So this title would be very catchy. Yeah, it's very catchy, and it would make it interesting. It would make someone interested to read. Let's go to this police report. Man arrested for everything. Okay, usually we would see headlines that go like man arrested for theft, or man arrested for robbery and kidnap, man arrested for rape. But this is man arrested for everything. So I think the word everything here is very, very catchy. Yeah, so many of us would want to know what's the everything about. Okay, and we have one here from Metro. PM put in intensive care unit. So we have picture of Mr. Boris, the Prime Minister, and he has been put into intensive care unit because he was tested positive for COVID-19. But now he's fine, yeah? He's out of intensive care. And we have one last one here. Our Prime Minister, our very own Prime Minister, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, he announced that MCO to be extended for another 2 weeks. Now, this article was published 2 or 4 weeks ago, all right? Okay, so now, titles of books and titles of headlines and articles or headlines have to be very catchy to be able to catch a student's or a reader's attention. So, likewise, let's think, what would make an essay interesting? Why would a reader want to read an essay? Okay. Now let's go to the third screen. Right, let's look at this. What makes a reader interested to read an essay? So I have listed 3 things here. 1, if the introduction is able to grab the reader's attention. If it has a catchy idea or a catchy line, or if it highlights something that the reader can relate to, something that you're interested to know, how to lose weight in a week, okay, how to earn 1 million ringgit within 3 days, you know, things which interest you, okay. And again here, the idea or the okay, we'll continue. Right. Hold on. Sorry, there was some technical error. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, right, we are here. Okay, what makes a reader interested to read an essay? Okay, if the introduction is able to grab the reader's attention, if the introduction has a catchy line or idea, if the introduction highlights something that the reader can relate to. So basically, it's the introduction that is able to create an impact. And if the introduction is interesting enough, then the reader would say, hey, let's pick up this essay to read, or let's pick up this article to read and see what it says. Okay, all right. Now, before we go into writing the introduction, let's take a look at the principles of writing an essay. All right, basically we would use 1-3-1 principle. That is 1 for the first paragraph, that's the introduction. 3 for second, third, and fourth paragraphs. These are what we call body paragraphs, where you would put your main idea and your details, examples, your supporting ideas, okay, some facts, your opinions, okay, it will all come under body paragraphs. And finally, the fifth paragraph, that's the conclusion. So this is the 1-3-1 principles, okay, right. Sometimes if you are a good writer and you have more ideas, you can extend, you can write 1-4-1, okay, but generally 1-3-1 would be fine for an essay. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Right, now we will start looking at how to write an introduction paragraph. Okay, first we have the starter. Now, please remember we are only focusing on one paragraph, okay? Just the introduction and not the three and the other one. So we are looking at one at the beginning, that's the introduction paragraph. We have the starter. And what kind of starters do we use? We can use a quotation. We can use an anecdote. We can use questions. Okay, so today we will learn 3 techniques of starting an essay, okay, in the introduction paragraph. And then we have the elaboration. That's the center part of the introduction paragraph. And what do we put under elaboration? We have relevant information, explanation, example, opinion, facts, history, and anything that you want to add on which is related to the question and the starter. Okay, and finally we have the tie-in, the T, which is the relation or the conclusion or what you want to confirm, anything that you have said earlier and you want to confirm it. So let us look at the SET here. S in red, E in green, and T in blue. This is what I call the set system in writing a paragraph. So for introduction, we will pay attention to SET. Okay, next. Okay, now as I go along, I will use the slides to explain, but you will see us discussing questions, all right, because we need to discuss in context so that you are able to see a paragraph. Okay, right, so let's look at question 1, the importance of reading. For every question, I've included a sample or two for us to relate. Okay, so first we have sample 1. Just read through sample 1. Everyone in the world loves to read. Now, this is a very general statement, too big a statement, okay? So maybe we want to move away from this type of sentences as our starter, all right? Okay, then we can read books, newspapers, magazines, journals, notices, advertisements, websites. Okay, a long list here written by the writer, and then we can read online materials and on the computer and on the handphone. Okay, let's look at the sentence in green. What have you got to say about this? Okay, look at the list written by this writer. There are 9 of them: books, newspapers, magazines, journals, notices, and all that. Okay, this list is too long. If we want to state or give examples, 2 or 3 in the list would be sufficient. Okay, so that's why there's a speech bubble here for you to think about, for you to talk about it. So this list is definitely too long, so we can shorten it and just write 2 or 3 examples. Okay, let's look at sample 2. Now, reading is very important to us. We must read every day. This is her starter. Okay, and she goes on to talk about what she can read. And everyone should start reading from young. Reading has many benefits, and in blue, reading is beneficial as it can widen knowledge, develop comprehension, and enhance vocabulary. All right, there are 2 things that we want to look at here. First, why is it? Why did I highlight this word? If you go back to the title, it's the importance of reading. Okay, sorry. Oops. Go back. Yeah. Oops. Hold on. Okay. All right. Question. The question is the importance of reading. So in sample 2, what's wrong with this? Okay. In sample 2, right, the word important is repeated. So we try not to use what is stated in the question. If possible, use a different word or a different phrase with the same meaning. Okay, right. Another thing that we are looking at here is in blue. This is the tie-in, and in the tie-in, it's a conclusion of why reading is important to us. Okay, it's a conclusion here. Now, it's a tie-in because it confirms that reading is important, and in this tie-in, 3 points are mentioned. What are the 3 benefits of reading? That is, it can widen knowledge, develop comprehension, and enhance vocabulary. Okay, so now why are there 3 points mentioned here? This would link to the principles. Remember, we have our 1, 3, 1. So these 3 here would actually develop into 3 body paragraphs later on when you start writing the essay. Okay. All right. Now, this is the first technique that we are going to use, beginning with a quotation and a proverb. Okay, now let's look at sample 3. We are still on the same question, the importance of reading. Okay, I have a little quotation here, which I've taken from Google. Okay, in fact, you can look up for quotations anywhere in books. All right, you can search online. You can even ask your teachers or your parents if they are familiar with quotations. Okay, all right. So this quotation, I've adapted a little. This is by Mason Cooley. Reading gives us some place to go to when we have to stay where we are. So I've adapted it a little, and I put it and I used it as my starter. Reading takes us to places when we have to stay where we are. Okay, that's my starter. I'm using a quotation. And in green is the elaboration or the information. Okay, and I've listed 1, 2, 3, and 4. So not 9 like in sample 1. Yeah. Okay, and finally I've come to the tie-in. Reading is beneficial, and I've stated 3 points, 3 benefits of reading here as the tie-in to conclude what I've started, what I mentioned in my starter. Okay, so this is packed into one paragraph using the SET system. All right, so we have the starter, the elaboration, and the tie-in. Okay, all right. Now, while planning is ongoing, the best method to use to generate ideas would be to ask questions. Always remember to ask the 5W and 1H question, which is 5 W's, who, what, where, when, and why, and 1H would be how. So constantly ask questions. Why do we read? Where can we read? What do we read? Okay, things ask questions with WH. Okay, and from there you are able to get a lot of ideas, a lot of information, a lot of details to elaborate on. Okay, right. Let's move on. Now, let's talk about some examples, yeah, some examples of proverbs or quotation that you may find useful and you may want to use them in your writing, in your essays, in class or in school or in exams. Okay, the early bird gets the worm. Okay, you also need to know the meaning. All right. Time management is life management. Okay, very simply, it means if you manage your time well, you are able to handle life better. Okay, right. Next, lost time is never found. And one more, and time and tide wait for no man. This is quite familiar. Yeah, I think many of you use it. I see this quotation on your folder sometimes. Okay. Next, procrastination is the thief of time. I think many parents and many teachers tell us not to delay, not to wait to the last moment to do our work. Okay, if you procrastinate, that means you lose that time to be able to do your work well. So don't delay. And finally, we have this. Okay, can you guess the proverb here? Where we have hay here. All right, so very familiar proverb, make hay while the sun shines. Okay, so all this can be used as a starter. Okay, if the question is about time. All right, okay. All right, let's move on to sample 4, ways to foster family relationship. Okay, let's look at this starter here. Our family is very important to us. A very simple, common way of beginning an essay. Okay, and the writer goes on to talk about what parents do for us, how important family is, and as children, what do we do to make them proud of us? Okay, and it's important to treasure and love them. And then the tie-in is there are many ways to foster family relationships. Now, I've highlighted these 3 words here. Think about this. Why are these 3 words highlighted? Okay, you can see it's clearly shown here that this has been taken from the question. So if possible, we do not want to repeat what's in the question. If you can think of a better way to say it, there are many ways to strengthen ties among family members. This is one good way to say the same thing about fostering family relationship. Okay, next. All right, we'll look at some quotations on family relationships to give us an idea how to use, what to use as a starter. Okay, blood is thicker than water. It shows that blood ties, family members are more important than friends. Okay, blood ties are more important than friendship. Next, a family is a gift that lasts forever. Okay, and we have one more. Having somewhere to go to is home. Having someone to love is family. And having both is a blessing. All right. Now, it is your job actually to memorize 1 or 2 that you like, that you are comfortable with, and you think it's going to be of good use when you write essays like this. So we need to sort of have a bank at the back of our head, yeah, with some of these important quotations or proverbs. Okay, right now we see how to use, or which one do we want to use in the next essay. Okay, so I've chosen blood is thicker than water in sample 5. So that's my starter. And look at the sentences in green. Okay, the elaboration, the first line, I explained very briefly what blood is thicker than water means. Okay, simple explanation. If it's self-explanatory, then you don't have to explain. Okay, now my tie-in, there are many ways to achieve this. Okay, this here would be ways to strengthen the bonds and how to treasure these bonds. Okay, but there is no 3-point elaboration here. So it's clearly understood that the writer is going to bring that down in the body paragraphs itself. So he or she has not listed it in the introduction paragraph. It's fine, okay? Because there are actually many ways of writing. There are many variations to writing. So this set system is one of the easiest way because it is very, very, it follows a very set principle. Okay, you have the S, you have the E, you have the T in every paragraph. All right, so it's up to you. You use the ways that you are most comfortable with. Okay, let's move on. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here because I'm going to, I want you to take a break and let's watch a video. Hold on. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take you directly to the video so that you're able to listen to the audio. Okay. Okay, right, yeah, right. Okay, I'm going to continue. We have watched okay, we've watched how technology has evolved, yeah, from simple dial phones to push buttons, and then now you have handphones that you just you need to swipe the screen, okay, and then you saw the newspapers, hard copy, printed, and now you can read everything online. Okay, so that's how technology has evolved. Okay, now that brings us to the next question, the role of technology. Okay, and I'm going to discuss the role of technology with another technique that you will learn today, that is to tell an anecdote or to relate an incident briefly. Okay, let's look at sample 6. Okay, now the starter. Jamie picks up the remote, presses the buttons, and then the television, air conditioner, and robot vacuum begin to function. She collects the pizza she ordered online, and she sets up her computer for a meeting. Okay, the starter is an anecdote because it's telling us a very short story. It's narrating an incident. Okay, so we are using the anecdote as a starter. And after that, we will move on to the elaboration in green. And she talks about how chores are burdensome before the advance of technology, and now how life is so much easier. Okay, and again here we have our tie-in. Technology has transformed education, communication, and transportation today. So these 3 points here is the conclusion, all right, of what technology can do today. Okay, now of course there are other points that you can think of. You can talk about industry, technology, the role of technology in industry, the use of robotic arms to make cars and so on. Okay, the role of technology in transportation, all right, our LRT, MRT system and so on, booking of airline tickets online, okay, medicine, construction and so on. So there are other points. You need not use only the 3 listed here, but then the idea is the same. The tie-in focuses on 3 points as we apply the 131 principle, and these 3 points will be further discussed in the body paragraphs. Okay, right. Now if you look here, the starter has about 3 or 4 sentences compared to quotation where you use only 1 or 2 sentences. So we need to have a check and balance. If the starter is rather long, then you can reduce the elaboration so that your introduction paragraph will not be too long. Okay, the introduction paragraph should be short, about maybe 4 sentences or 5. Okay, before you move, and then you move on to the body paragraphs where you do the explanation. All right, so you need to do a bit of balancing here. Okay, next, right, let's look at the next slide. Okay, the question, festivals in Malaysia, sample 7. Okay, look at this anecdote. 3 sentences. Laughter from the wooden house, the smell of grandma's special mutton curry. I enjoy coming home to the warmth of my family, okay, during Deepavali. Okay, now the starter is an anecdote, 3 long sentences. So to strike a balance, the elaboration becomes a little bit shorter. And here, it's only 1 sentence. That's fine, okay? Because you need to pack your introduction into 1 paragraph, which is not too long, all right? So you do a check and balance. And the tie-in would be the conclusion, 3 main festivals celebrated, because this would link to the title, the question, festivals in Malaysia, okay? And these 3 paragraphs will be discussed in the body paragraphs, okay? Of course, if you don't want to talk about Hari Raya and Chinese New Year, you can talk about other festivals celebrated in Malaysia. Okay, next slide. Okay, now there's a comparison that I want to do here before we proceed to the next technique. Now, festivals in Malaysia, okay, we still use the same question to discuss. Okay, if you look at the example I gave, it was an anecdote. Could hear laughter, could smell grandma's mutton curry, you enjoy coming home to during Deepavali. Okay, that's an anecdote. Okay, if you don't want to use an anecdote, for the same question, we can use a quotation. Now, let's go back to this quotation, which I find very meaningful. Okay, so I'm going to take this whole thing, take whole. Okay, I'm not going to do any adaptation. I'm going to take the whole thing and I'm going to use it as my starter. So here I have my starter, 3 sentences, and these 3 sentences actually come from one quotation here. And I used it because I find that it creates a very deep impact. Okay, so here, having somewhere to go to is home, having someone to love is family, having both is a blessing. And then I move on to my elaboration, my E. And I've changed the sentence a little. Going home to the warmth of the family during festivals is a joyous experience. Okay, I've taken this from her anecdote earlier. Okay, and Malaysians are blessed with many different festivals, and here my tie-in goes back to the blessing of going home during festivals. Okay, so you see, these techniques can be applied into questions where and when it is relevant. Okay, I'll explain to you why, where, and when. Okay, there are some exceptions later. Okay. Next. All right, I'm going to play this, but this is without audio. So you just take a break and just have a look at it, okay? Okay, I think this happened in Genting Highlands. Yeah, a few years ago, there was a massive landslide in Genting Highlands. Okay, and look at this. The landslide has come down on the construction site below the hill, right? Yeah, and the people are running for their lives. Okay. And the buildings coming down with the sand. Okay, right. Okay. Right. Now that takes us to question 5. It's an argumentative essay. Development brings more harm than good. Okay. Let's look at sample 8. Okay. Right. Look at the colors. Yeah, the colors actually tell us about the set system that I'm applying into paragraph. Okay, the red is the starter. Okay, this is an anecdote. Even though this is argumentative, you may find that it's a very it's heavy writing, but we can begin with an anecdote. Okay, and then because the anecdote is slightly longer, so I've reduced my elaboration to 1 sentence. Okay, it's a check and balance, so that we will not have a paragraph that's too long in the introduction. And my tie-in is where I make my stand. Development brings more harm than good. It has adverse effects on soil erosion, like soil erosion, loss of habitat, and global warming. Now, I did say earlier that if we can, we try not to take words, repeat words from the questions. Okay, but sometimes you can. Okay, if you find it difficult to look for other phrases, or you find that the other phrases do not have the same effect, then there's no harm in using the questions in your introduction paragraph. So because this is argumentative and you want to make a stand here that development brings more harm than good, so all right, by all means copy your question into this paragraph, and that's your stand. And why Why do you say it brings more harm? Now we're going to explain in 3 paragraphs. Okay, we're going to talk about soil erosion, loss of habitat, and global warming. Okay, and these 3 points will be discussed in the body paragraphs. Okay, all right. Now, the final technique for this today's lesson will be to ask a question. Now, when you ask a question, you may provide the answer, but sometimes it is not necessary because these are what we call rhetorical questions. Okay, let's look at question 6. The best way to stay healthy. The best way to stay healthy. Okay, sample 9. Look at the question that I put here. Do you know how many teaspoons of sugar are there in a can of carbonated drink? There are 8. Okay, but most contain just a little more than that. Of course, if you take less sugar, less sweet kind of drinks or 0 sugar, then there will be much more less sugar than that. Okay, so the sweetness in the drinks appeals to adults and children alike. However, okay, I've used a linking word here. Daily consumption of the added sugar in drinks causes health problems later. It is vital for everyone to lead a healthy lifestyle to prevent health issues in the future. So basically, if you look at this whole paragraph, it's about health. Okay? And we know sugar is bad for health. So that's why we have asked a question here to send a little bit of electric shock to the readers. Okay? To jolt them, to let them think. Okay? To let them be aware that sugar is not healthy. All right? And then the tie-in, it's important to lead a healthy lifestyle to prevent health issues. So, very likely the next 3 paragraphs will talk about how to stay healthy, the best way to stay healthy. Probably you want to say the best way to stay healthy is through exercise. And then you talk about exercise in 3 paragraphs. Okay, so now before we go on, let's look at some questions that you need not give an answer. This one I provided the answer. There are 8. Okay, but sometimes you put questions like this. Are you aware that avocados are very healthy? So you need not give an answer. Yes, I am aware. You know, you can just leave it because people are aware already through the question. Okay, do you know that jogging can improve cardiovascular fitness? Again here, you need not provide an answer. All right, I'm sure many people know that jogging can improve cardiovascular fitness. Okay, now let's move to the next slide. Again, we are using the same technique, asking a question. Let's look at sample 10. The question is on time management. Yeah, time management is life management. Remember that quotation? Okay, why do we often complain that we do not have enough time in a day? One question, no need answer. Okay, I move on to my elaboration. I explain, I give examples. People complain, people sigh, people moan when there's deadline, they rush around, they panic. All right, so this is a result of poor time management, and my tie-in will be good time management enables you to achieve more within 24 hours. Okay, it is wise to plan your time well. Now look at my time in here. It's wise to plan your time well will link directly to time management. So my next 3 paragraphs would probably be how to plan your time. So we are going to advise people by giving them 3 ways, yeah, to plan their time well. Okay, now look at this sentence. They panic. You see, there are only 2 words to make this sentence. Okay, what I want to highlight here is that there's no need to write long sentence all the time. If you think 2 words or 3 words are effective in a sentence, let it be 2 words or 3 words. Okay, so those of you who think that, oh no teacher, my English is not very good, my command is very weak, you need not be intimidated by making long sentences. Think of short sentences, good vocabulary, okay, and try to get your grammar right, then you should be fine. Okay, all right, let's look at the next one. Okay, we've actually come to the end of the 3 techniques. Now, before we end the session, let us revise the 3 techniques. First, we'll be using a quotation or a proverb. It is your job to go and learn up a few quotations or proverbs so that you are able to use them anytime, depending and relevant to the questions, okay? Second technique is to to tell an anecdote, to write an anecdote or to tell a short story, usually not more than 3 sentences, or if you can't do it in 3, 4 would be just good, okay? And then you need to strike a balance in the number of sentences in your introductory paragraph, okay? And the third technique will be asking a question. Remember, when we ask a question, sometimes you do not need to provide the answers because the answers are actually known. The questions are put there with the intention of just to jolt their memory, just to shock them a little, okay, to make them aware. All right. So this is something you can do with your school, with your friends, with your teachers. I can go through with you very quickly. Okay, let's look at the techniques you would use for shopping. Okay, you can use the anecdote. All right, you can talk about someone who's a shopping addict. Okay, and then maybe you want to highlight the disadvantages of shopping and so on. Okay, right. Now this is a proverb: prevention is better than cure. So very likely it's linked to health. So you may want to talk about how to prevent illness. Okay, how this is good in times of this COVID-19 period. What are the ways to prevent? Okay, to prevent from falling sick, or to be to prevent from falling sick. How to be healthy? Okay, the advantages of having friends. Now this will be good if you can use a quotation or a proverb. There are lots of quotations or proverbs on friends, yeah, on friendship. Okay, and an argumentative essay here. School uniforms should not be made compulsory. Yeah, I'm sure you're attending class now with me, not in your uniforms. Okay, so maybe you want to use an anecdote here. All right, it's rather suitable, or a question. Okay, all right. And before I end the session, there are things that I think are playing on your mind, questions that you are that you want to ask. So let's look at these questions. What if the essay question is a proverb or a quotation? So how do you want to begin? If it's already a proverb or quotation, I would advise you not to start your essay with another proverb or a quotation. Okay? Use an anecdote to talk about the proverb. Okay? B. Do I have to explain the proverb or quotation that I use? If you think it's self-explanatory, I think I mentioned this earlier. If it's self-explanatory, then you need not to. Usually quotations are self-explanatory, so you need not explain the meaning of it. Okay, but if it's a proverb and you want to highlight it, you want to highlight the meaning, then do it in one sentence. Okay, and the third issue that may be on your mind: can I begin a narrative with an anecdote? Now, a narrative and anecdote, these are similar things. Okay, so okay, we should not. We try not to. We should not, in fact. Okay, if it's an SPM essay, a narrative essay has conditions. You either begin with the given words or you end with the given words. If you are asked to begin your narrative, your story with those given words or sentence, then it's not right for you to begin with an anecdote. Okay, so you have to use the sentence given to begin your essay. But if the narrative has an ending which you have to put into your story, then maybe you can begin with an anecdote and explain a little before you actually begin writing your narrative essay. Okay? All right, so we have come to the end of the presentation. I'll stop sharing. Okay. And I'll okay. Okay. All right. We've come to the end. Hold on. I hope you have learned something from today's lesson and you would apply these 3 techniques. Okay, you need to practice a little and then apply them into writing. Okay, thank you.